Welcome. I'm happy that I managed to get some creative people here at this time of day, which is great. I know it's early for all of us, but let's get into this presentation. If I find my clicker, where did I put it? We'll do it like this. So what's next for TV? I'm going to walk you through 3 chapters, and usually I do this with media people, buyers and brands, so I'm very happy that I have some creative people in front of me. I hope you don't mind, but I have to wear my jacket because it's freezing, and otherwise I fear I won't see my children again, freezing to death on a stage here. So what's next for TV? Content, consumption, and connections. I have one sales pitch slide for you, that's all, I promise. And that's going to be the next one. And now I found my clicker, very good. Just a quick word about us, RTL Ad Connect. You don't know RTL, you're all from Britain, you don't know who we are. But we are the biggest video company in Europe, basically. We own 9 TV and broadcasting channels across Europe. And the presentation. And we're basically delivering the content on the big screen television to 165 million TV watchers every day, and in parallel we own the biggest digital platforms in Europe, catch-up platforms. We also work for ITV, that you should know. And we do a lot of stuff on YouTube. We own the biggest multi-channel networks there, so if you've been to the influencer talk downstairs, probably some of the names we also work with. And that's about us. We really have this strategy about total video, and that's what I'm going to talk about today a bit. And that's my sales pitch. That's all about us. Now let's talk about books, because you're all digital, and I want to talk about a book, a real-life physical book that we publish every year. It's called the Total Video Key Facts, and everything you're going to see in the next 40 minutes, 30 minutes, is based on this publication, on this study that we do. And we actually do it since 25 years, and it's pretty cool. And now I have to ask you to take off your headphones, because I have a video that can explain this much better than me, but the sound apparently is not going through the headphones, through the stuff. Now you can put the headphones again. Okay, so this is really about a publication that we do each year that covers 40 countries, all the necessary video trends that advertisers and agencies need to know in order to make smart investment decisions. So if you want to know what's the smartphone penetration in Germany compared to the Netherlands, you would find it in there. Or if you want to know how much time do actually people spend with live television anymore in the US compared to the UK, you would find that in there. And everything I'm going to talk about is based on this book. So what I want to talk about is, if you look at it today, TV doesn't mean television anymore, it means total video, right? It means on every screen we have video content, and video is the most dominant way of how we are consuming content today, because we're very lazy, we don't like books anymore, we don't read newspapers anymore, we want video. And we call it TV, that's why we call TV total video. And what I want to walk you through today is, as an agency or as a brand, you need to know what you need to do with this total video ecosystem and how to win in it, right? So I'm going to talk you through 3 chapters, which basically deal with how to win in this total video game. So the first one is you need to win the hearts of people, right? Then you need to get their attention one way or another. And last but not least, you need to find the right touch points to get in contact with those people, right? So these are the three chapters. And essentially, if we look at the hearts, what does it mean to capture the hearts of people? You know, to warm their hearts. It's cold in here, so maybe I can warm your hearts a bit. It's all about content, right? Because although I'd like to talk a lot about how advertising is meaningful and can be engaging and everything, but the truth of the matter is people watch television, go to Netflix, go to the ITV Hub because of the content, right? So if we look at content, the one message I can give you here is that it comes in all sizes and shapes and forms, and it is very diverse. So anyone have an idea what this is? Anyone seen that? I mean, any clue? So this is the most successful content in the world. It is the biggest show of the world. It's the Chinese Spring Festival. Each year, about 170 million people watch it at the same time live in television in China. 170 million people. They added another 3 million people compared to last year. So this is some stuff, I can't relate to that. But as a fact of a matter is, if you want to capture people's hearts with content, you need to adapt to the local specificities. So 170 million people. Another nice example. Anyone know this guy? No. Anyone from Iceland? Probably not. But this is, in terms of percentage, the most successful show on earth. It gets a rating of 99.1%. That means 99.1% of people that are able to watch television in Iceland watch this show on New Year's. Right? Watching that guy dancing and doing some silly stuff. So content is really all about diversity. And if we look on a global scale across Europe, what kind of content, what kind of genres and programs are the ones that engage with people the most? Yes, there's one big observation, obviously. News is a big topic across Europe and the world, but we also have these local specificities and local angles that are always interesting to look at. For example, you guys, you love series. I don't know, of the top 500 programs in the UK, 70.5% are serious. Whereas in a country like Spain, it's more about entertainment, right? So diversity, if you think of content, is really key. And not only in the genres, but especially in the recurring programs. And that's what we call the rise of the local heroes. And I have another video, so if you could put your headphones down, to show you the content diversity that is across Europe, right? So the interesting factor here is really that if you look at the data, In 2012, about 15% of the top recurring programs in Europe were of US content, right? US series. In 2017, that basically was cut by half. It's only 8%. So what we see really is that local content is the form of content that captures people's attention the most, and the dominance of US content, especially in long form, is declining a lot. But as we all know, long form content found a new home actually, besides the big screen, which is subscription based video on demand. And if we look at that area of subscription based video on demand, we can state a couple of things here. So in general, the penetration of subscription based video on demand in Europe is still quite low. It's below 20%. If I don't consider you guys anymore part of the EU, of the Europe, you have a pretty high penetration. But what you can see is that if you look at the pie chart, on those platforms, it's all about US fiction content at the moment, right? So, and if you consider what I just told you a couple of seconds before, that the trend is really that local content is the dominant way of capturing people's hearts, we believe that this little number of 33% with the local platforms is becoming more and more important. And we're going to see a lot more local SVOD platforms arising and capturing this local content trends. Because if we take a deeper look at the biggest platform, Netflix, and look at the German catalog, which is basically the biggest market for them in continental Europe, the percentage of local content is about 15%. I don't know if you follow EU legislation, but it's a very fun topic. They always publish some really great stuff. And they just published a regulation that says those kind of platforms will have to have a share of local content of 30% in the future. So you think, oh great, more local content on Netflix, that would be good for the consumer. Yes and no. It will eventually mean that they will have to raise their subscription prices, because at the moment they're spending about $8 billion on content, which is mainly US content that they scale across Europe. So they're going to have to invest a lot into local content, which leads to higher consumer prices. And even if they do so, even if they get to the 30%, they're not even close to the big players in Europe. So this is the biggest television channel in Europe, RTL, Germany, and the percentage of local content is 90% on that channel. Anyone speak German, read German? No? Well, this is the German version of Farmer Wants a Wife, with the beautiful German farmers here. But 90% of all of the content shown on that channel is local. And as I said, this topic of local content diversity is getting more and more important. And we will see a lot more initiatives from broadcasters capturing that local content trend on SVOD platforms. So, for example, Salto is a combination of the biggest broadcasters in France getting together and building a SVOD platform with all the content of M6, TF1 and France Télévisions in order to exactly capture that local content diversity. So that's the long form world, right, where we would argue, okay, so people that spend half an hour with some content, they want really the local stuff, right? But in the short form world, the YouTube world, it will be totally different. It will be all about US content. Well, actually, no. If we look at that, diversity is really also key in the short form YouTube world, because essentially, if you look at the growth rates of the most popular genres on YouTube, you'll see it's very different. You guys love music and dance, for example. I don't know why, but it is the category that grows the most. I'm from Germany. As you would guess, it's not a nice country, so we like to travel. So we're very interested to get travel content. But at the end, what you can state is that if you want to be successful with content both in the long form and in the short form world, you need to adapt to the diversity, to the local diversity, in order to win people's hearts. And this next slide is one for you guys that actually buy media or have something to do with media, because what I'm telling you is that it also makes a difference how you access that kind of inventory, that kind of content, how you display your message against those content. If you buy directly with an MCN or a content aggregator versus if you buy globally against you. Anybody buy media inventory on YouTube? Oh, okay, we'll skip that, no problem. We'll go directly to the attention. So attention is all about knowing how people consume media, right? And this will be a little bit, a surprise for you, because the data in that chapter is quite counterintuitive to what we all think the consumption reality of people is. What we can state is definitely that we see a shift from a traditional viewer-centric model, right? One broadcaster sending to all the people, to a model where it's more user-centric, right? Where it's about capturing the attention, wherever the user is consuming video content. And if we look at this total video ecosystem of the users today, and a typical total video day in the UK, in this country, we can state a couple of stuff. So the first thing is, this big chunk of your total video day is live television. So in 2014, on an all individuals target group, you spent 175 minutes with live television per day. So who's spending 3 hours per day with live television? Raise your hands. 2 hours? 3? Perfect. Love it. 2 hours? Okay, 1 hour. As a fact of the matter is, in doing presentations for groups like this, nobody spends that much time with television, live television. And we all think, oh, that's the reality, right? But we're not representative of the general population. And between 2014 and 2017, we lost a couple of minutes, but we're down to 160 minutes for live television consumption still, right? Then we have playback television. We have growth in SVOD, so plus 12 minutes per day. We have growth on the short form side, YouTube, plus 16 minutes per day. So if you do a little bit of calculation, I know it's early, but if you try to do it, you end up with a total of plus 18 minutes that we spent more with video each and every day than we did in 2014. So that means essentially video is, pervasive. It's always around us. It's always accessible. And what we can state here is also that live television is still the core of your total video day. And if you add up the numbers, I did it for you, so you don't need to do it, but if you look at it, in 2014, we spent about 217 minutes, or you guys, because I'm not from this country, but you spent about 217 minutes with long-form content, right? 2017, I don't know why I didn't cheat on the numbers. It's the exact same number. It's 217 minutes with long-form content. The distribution has changed, right? So you spend more time with SVOD, you spend more with playback TV, but the fact is that we love long-form content as a human being, and especially on the big screen, on the television. And if we zoom a bit into that television consumption, what we can state is that this is the reality across all of Europe and the US, by the way, that live television is still the core of your total video day, okay? And you have to love the Italians, because it's 92% of their video day is spent with live television. Gotta love the Italians. If we take a more helicopter view on that television consumption, what we can say is, so globally, people spend 3 hours per day in average with television, live television consumption. And we, you'll always think North America, most advanced country, right? Then nobody's watching television anymore. Everybody's on Netflix, Amazon Prime, Twitch, whatever. They have a 4 hours in average per day that they watch live television. In Europe, we're a little bit more, we're a little below, but let's take a deeper look on Europe and zoom in on Europe. What we can see here is that you guys spend about 3.5 hours per day with that, which is nice. The Polish, 4 hours 20, and now comes my favorite number, the Danish, 2 hours 40. Why do they spend, less time with television than the other countries? Have you been to Denmark? Anyone been to Denmark? The weather is usually not that great. It's a bit like here, so people should spend a lot of time with television. So maybe it's, linking back to the first chapter, the content is not very good. I don't know why, but in the reality, even in a country like Japan, where you think, everybody's on their mobile phone, nobody's watching the big screen anymore, you have 4 hours and 40 minutes. And that, if you look the long-term perspective, 1993 to 2017, how that consumption evolved in Europe, you can state two things. Okay, so this is the sales pitch. We gained 1 hour between 1993 and 2017. But yes, of course, you see the last couple of years, it is steadily declining on a slow range. Yet, if you do communication, if you do advertising, there's two things you want: reach and frequency, right? So if you want reach, if you're a fast-moving consumer brand, if you're packaged goods, if you want to reach people because your product is full of sugar and you need people to buy it and tell them every day, there's no way around television, because across Europe, even the Danes, you get 70% of them per day with television. And that's a little bit the contra-intuitive fact that we all have to face, that digital media is great and we invest heavily in it, on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, influencers, all that stuff. But if you're a big brand, if you are a mass market brand, you have to add new consumers, you have to add new buyers every day. And if you want to do that, you have to have reach. And the big screen is still the medium that provides that reach in a very fast way. So we talked about content, about the hearts. We talked about the attention and the consumption reality. And now the question is, as a brand, as an advertiser, how can I, how can I combine this? Where are the touch points that I need to be in order to access my target group, grab their attention? And I gave a little bit the answer in the beginning. Content is really one of the key parts in it. And I brought two examples to show what the new connections are that you can have with consumers today. One of the examples is from this lovely island. It's about getting closer to content. It's about getting closer to the stuff that people actually want to watch, right? And this example, and you can take off your headphones now because it's very good, is from ITV, our partner here in the UK, and it's a little show called Love Island, you all know and love.
Specially made Love Island product line and a tattoo party in the villa. Jet2 also jumped into Beverly Superdry, providing flights for competition winners. Forget emotional baggage, Jet2 created a line of branded baggage and bespoke social posts featuring the islanders' stay at the villa, wearing clothing from another partner. Jeez, they're all cracking up. Misguided Clothes adorn the hottest contestants, and their website along with our official app help viewers get the Love Island look. Misguided then coupled up with Ecopool, Love Island's official alcohol partner for a shared party for bloggers and influencers. Ecopool's animated a special new app featuring on-bottle branding. Ministry of Sound became a serial data providing the music for a villa pool party, and the new Love Island late to full party.
bikinis. Put on the headphones. So, so there are two amazing things here. The first is obviously muscles and bikinis make great connections to consumers. And the second one, which I find a little bit more interesting actually, is that a family brand like Kellogg's, right, which is really a family brand, is looking for content platforms they can, link themselves together, which a couple of years back seemed impossible. I mean, I worked on media agency side. If a client like Kellogg's getting into that kind of content, you were like, no way. But today, brands are looking more and more to find connections with their possible consumers by linking and getting closer to the content. So muscles and bikini is one way of connecting to consumers, right? But the other way, believe it or not, is technology. Technology is the main driver behind finding new connections to consumers. So the last point I want to talk about is really the technology in your living room. So about half of all Western Europeans own a smart TV. Do you own a smart TV? Smart TV? Okay. So now the question is, do you belong to the about 80% that connected actually this TV to the internet? Yeah? Great. So that makes you part of 91 million households across the across Western Europe that are connected, that have a connected TV in their living room. So if you talk about connected TV, it's, buzzwords as always, but there are basically two things here as an advertiser or as an agency that you can use for your communication. So the first one is what we call just connected TV. If you have the big screen and it's connected to the internet, you can, pop up the ITV Hub or any other catch-up platform, or you watch YouTube over your big screen. That's what we call OTT, over-the-top services, right? And as a broadcaster or as a platform, we can alter the advertisement there. We can put another pre-roll on YouTube. We can put another pre-roll in the ITV Hub. That's nice. But the usage of those kind of platforms on the big screens is actually pretty low in Europe. Whereas the other way, what we call addressable TV, is very interesting, because in the last chapter I told you that the live linear broadcast signal is really the key to advertiser consumption, right? Because everybody is using it. And if your TV is connected to the internet, we can use the live broadcast signal to send you messages, to alter your screen, without you having to do anything. Anyone remember the red button, blue button stuff on the remote? Nobody used it. Nobody wanted interaction on the big screen. So we figured out a while back that you can push messages without having people to have any kind of interaction with you on the big screen. And there are several technologies across Europe that enable this usage of the linear broadcast signal to mix it with the digital targeting capabilities. So here in the UK, you have Sky, which is very strong. They have a product called Sky Ad Smart, which is basically enabling you to alter the advertising on this big screen through digital input. In the US, a lot of connected set-top boxes. In France, a lot of IPTV set-top boxes, because the telcos were the first to provide television connection. In continental Europe, there's a technology called HBB-TV. You won't have heard of it. It's called Hybrid Broadband Broadcast Television. It's a standard, an open standard for TV set manufacturers to enable a path back to the television set, which means basically that with the linear broadcast signal, we can send a URL to your television. If it's HBB TV enabled, which is all the television sets, LG, Samsung, Sony, whatever, we can send a URL and we can alter the information on your screen in real time. Which means two things. We can put in nice banners that are contextually targeted to the program you're watching, for example, or we can exchange the spot in the ad break with one that is more targeted towards your consumer behavior, your viewing behavior on the big screen. That's a bit frightening, I know, but at the end of the day, it's all about mixing the big mass reach linear broadcast signal with the digital targeting capabilities in the digital world, right? And there's another step we're currently undertaking in Germany, which is basically, if you look at that nice family, I love that picture. So if you look very closely, the only one watching actually I think it's Dancing with the Stars or something like that, is the little boy with the dinosaur, right? Everybody else is looking at other screens. So I told you that we are now able to actually address the big screen in the living room, right? And the next step is we can synchronize that advertising on the big screen with all the advertising on the little screens. Why is that so? Because your big screen is connected to your internet. If you know your way around the internet, you know you have an IP address, right? All the other devices in that lovely family are connected to the Wi-Fi of that household, which means is they use the same IP range. They are in the same IP range, which means we know which kind of devices in that household are in the same IP range and are currently being used. So that means that we can synchronize, the big screen television advertising that the little boy is seeing with the iPad daughter, the iPad Pro father, and the MacBook mother, because they're all in the same IP range, which means is if you're an advertiser or media agency, you love it because reach and frequency, that's the two things you want to have. You want to have reach and you want to control how many messages your target group actually gets. And you can do that across all screens in one household. To summarize, to summarize, if you want to win hearts of the people, you need to know your way around the content they love. And that means you need to adapt to the diversity of the local taste. If you want to win their attention, you need to know how are they consuming media, right? And the one big message here is the big screen in the living room is still the big chunk of your total video days, right? And last but not least, if you want to get closer to them, if you want to find these connections to your consumers, you have to know two things. First, getting closer to content will be key for you and your brand. And the second one is the living room is really the new battlefield, and there are new ways of technology that you can use to connect to consumers in the living room. And last but not least, I gave it away through the stupid animation. Data is really the glue that keeps it all together. I could spend another 2 hours talking about data, but it's really sexy, yes, because you can do a lot of stuff if you know in the content, if you know the consumption, if you have the connections. And data, you basically harvest data in all three of those areas. You can do some really crazy shit with that, really good stuff. Spooky, but good. And this is really what we believe you need to know as an advertiser or agency in order to win in this total video game, to win your future consumers. So, thank you. Thank you very much.